There you go. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Phil Resch here. For those who don't know me, been in the financial services industry 18 years, wholesaled for a majority of it, and seen different ways to approach clients through things like point of sale. I used to do point of sale for financial advisors. 2.5 years ago, separated and created Valor Financial Specialists, and we have over 460 licensed agents across the country, California, Connecticut, and we continue to expand and grow and look forward to any type of strategic partnerships and ways that we can help serve the community. Because at the end of the day, it's all about helping customers. So today, we're going to talk about sales strategies for life insurance. Ideally, what we're looking to do is talk about how to talk to clientele. So can be a lost art, how to talk to people. A lot of times us as agents think one track mind. It's time to get a sale. And we forget that, the person buying it, it could be the way that they're going to retire. Or the person buying it, it's that last love letter that they're going to give to their loved ones. So we have to think of objectives of how we're going to use proven sales techniques so we can confidently close insurance sales. More importantly, uncover rapport building strategies because I think the big thing that a lot of people forget is when you sign on the dotted line, that's the beginning of the relationship, not the end. A lot of people are thinking, well, I'll make this sale and then I'll move on to another one. Well, guess what? That customer just put a promise in you to help them, and that's why again, rapport building strategies. It's a long-term investment strategy. And then also mastering objective handling methods. You're always going to get someone who's going to say no. I know myself and a business partner of mine, we're working on an estate planning case that we're in about a year and a half now. And the client said no. Now he's saying yes. Then he says no again. So you have to understand how to handle objections, especially in this industry. Like you always joke about, baseball, if you hit a 250 average, you're going to be in the Hall of Fame. So with the life insurance industry, you're going to have an average of like 100, not even 250. So it's a tough industry, but a very rewarding industry as well. So, when we talk about the importance of sales strategies in life insurance, it is a very highly competitive landscape. So, not only do you have numerous options for types of products that you can sell, different carriers, for example's sake, we have 30 plus carriers at our fingertips. I usually focus on five because five can get me through 95% of my clientele without a problem. I don't need to know them all, but if you have some client who's adamant about getting a certain carrier, guess what? We got them and we can stay unbiased in that solution and opportunity. But when we also think about the highly competitive landscape, let's say, for example's sake, I approached a client and said, hey, this is the offer. It is $200 a month, and this is the death benefit you're going to get. They might take that quote and shop you somewhere else to find that someone else might give it to them for $180. Now, it might be you know, a worse product per se, but because the pricing is cheaper, because you didn't build that rapport with the consumer, they might be naive enough to just say, oh, well, this one is better because it's cheaper. In the absence of value is cost. You can always use that cell phone example. I don't know if anyone's ever heard that, but why do people buy Samsungs? Why do people buy Apple? It's not because, they're any better, because you can make flip phone calls. You can use T9 to text people and technically get on the internet, but it's the value that people see in those type of products. So that's where, even in this highly competitive landscape, you can still make an opportunity for yourself. Trust is the foundation. As always, with life insurance, it is a long-term commitment. So you have to establish credibility from the start. Now, for some people who may not have been in the industry for a long period of time, maybe it's your first or second year, and you're sitting there saying, well, I don't have the credibility of you, Phil, you being in 18 years. Well, if you hang your hat with Valor to some extent, guess what? I partner with an organization that has over 20 years experience because you two, me 18. You're not lying, but the fact of the matter is you could say almost a decade of experience. Two is almost. It just doesn't mean it's right next to it. So, but some people like to hear of a credibility situation. Typically, older people like to know credentials and things like that. So trust is a major foundation for life insurance for sure. And client-centered solutions. So when you think about top performing agents, I'm staring over here, like anyone ever hear of Million Dollar Roundtable? So for those who haven't heard of Million Dollar Roundtable, the idea of the MDRT is where you hit a certain percentage of uh, income, compensation, sales in a calendar year, and you will qualify to be what they would call MDRT or top of the table or core to the table. So there's different levels depending on how much you've done. Now, are there trips? No. MDRT, they have MDRT, conventions all over the place, but you pay for them to go to them. They're like thousands of dollars. But those people are the top of the top. They've written a lot of business. I think the lowest one is like 250K in annual premium or compensation, if I recall correctly. It's been a while. I don't remember, but don't quote me on that. But when you think of client-centered solutions, what the MDRT people do from that standpoint is they focus on the agent or they focus on the client, right? When you can smell commission breath on some people, the way they illustrate some of their illustrations, higher face amounts with less premium, but promising people income, it's just you're shooting yourself in the foot. So if you do right by the client, you're going to do right by the community. The community, you get referrals. I picked up a IUL and a term client from a prior agent from a different organization, but the client liked me more. And so I got them as clients, and I didn't make any money off of servicing their policy, but they just referred me a couple cases for term insurance. So, $1,000 here just because of a referral. And a lot of people in this industry, statistics show 2 years and you're out because you worked out of your warm market. But if you pass that, 5, 6 years from now, if you do good business, client-centered solutions, then you're going to have people just referred to you. You won't have to go out and find people. I promise you that. So the idea is, sales goal, help clients understand the value of the life insurance. That is our goal, if you will. So the more you help them educate them on what they're getting, the higher you will reach in your sales goals too through this decision-making process. So we just want to make sure that, for us to hit our numbers, like I work backwards. So, if I were to say that my goal for the year was $100,000, right? So if my goal for the year is $100,000, how many customers per average do I have to meet, or how much do I have to place to get there? How many people do I have to meet? That takes an application. How many people do I have to talk to just to get to the application? So think of sales goals and how to work backwards from that. I think it's pretty important. Um, and when you talk about proven sales techniques. These are good techniques in regards to having conversations with clients. Now, for those who know me well enough, know that I'm not a big fan of paid for leads. Okay. So, paid for leads, in my mind, my stigma is people who are trying to sell final expense. They think they're going to get phone ringing off the hook to sell products so they can sell it and make tons of money, but not realizing that you're fighting against other people for these leads. You're fighting for the clients to say yes. And then the new iPhone comes out and then they cancel the policy. Now you got chargebacks from that while you're still paying for new leads. It can become kind of a rat race. So when we go through these presentations or these ways to approach and talk to people, I'm coming at it from I'm sitting down at the table with them. You wouldn't believe how many times I've had opportunities to sell something, not because I'm trying to do a pitch, but because they know what I do. And you just go from there. So we start out with a consultative approach. And I'll use the old joke, God gave us two ears and one mouth for a reason. We should listen two times as much as we talk. So the big thing is active listening. Are you actively listening to your client, or are you actively waiting for them to stop talking so you can talk? There is a difference, okay? So active listening is huge because now you can hear triggers from the client on what they're really looking for. And also asking insightful questions. I think that's probably the most important thing to ask someone is you can still control the conversation. Think of it like a dance, right? Not every single conversation is going to be the same. 18 years of doing this, I've had not one conversation be the same. Everybody brings something different to the table. So when you're actively listening, you're asking insightful questions. What you're doing mentally is you're checking a box on things that's still relevant and things you're not going to touch on. And so why it works, the client feels appreciated, they feel heard. Um, a lot of times people just want to talk, you know, and doing so, like if I said, tell me a little bit about yourself. Unfortunately, I used to get paid by the word, so I have a very long elevator pitch as to how I got out of corporate and into this industry. But if I was talking to a client, I would keep it short because I want to hear their story. What's the dynamic? Who makes the money decisions? What would happen if you didn't make it home tonight? Do you have anything else in place? What is the objective of our conversation today? Never hurts to even have an agenda, So stuff like that, when you build out why, this type of deal works, you're providing meaningful solutions because you're hearing them. And that's all it is people want to be heard, they don't want to be sold, they want to buy. That's the big thing. So as you see the example, what are your main concerns about securing your family's financial future? Do you have a plan in place for covering final expense? I usually substitute that by saying, what would happen if you didn't make it home tonight? And you wait. So a lot of times they'll uncover a lot of different details from that standpoint as to do they have a plan in place? Well, I got insurance for my job. Tell me about it. You know, what does it entail? Like, how much do you have? Okay. Do they have a house? When did you buy the house? Is it, a forever home? I see a tricycle in the corner. How old are your kids? Tell me about your kids. All of that stuff matters. Whether it's a mental checkbox, they don't buy it today, but the kid's date of birth or whatever, and you go later and say, hey, just want to say happy birthday to your son. How's he doing? Just checking in, stuff like that. But when you talk consultative approach, the main idea is you're asking a lot of questions so you can ultimately eliminate any form of rejection. That's the secret, right? Do you like to rent your coverage? Do you like to buy your coverage? Do you like this? Do you like that? What are your thoughts on this? And that kind of leads into the feel, felt, found method. So after you're asking these questions and you're letting them talk, now all of a sudden they feel like you're acknowledging them by head nods, right? Agreeing with them. I completely understand how you feel. This is a really big decision. And that's why, like I was saying in the beginning of the presentation, was, dealing with a customer for a year and a half, it's a $35 million case. The guy needs it for estate planning, but you still have to let them get to that decision. Sometimes people use the felt scenario. So I feel what you're going through. I felt a similar situation. So, open-ended question. Tell me, Mr. or Mrs. Client, what type of plan do you have in place for long-term care? So if you're talking to someone like mid 40s, 50s, 60s, oh, well, we have a side fund. Have you ever had any experience with long-term care, either from your parents or someone that you know? Yeah, it was a nightmare. My parents were on Medicare or Medicaid and this and that. Well, I can definitely empathize with that. I saw the same thing happen with my mom. Unfortunately, my mom and my grandmother had a falling out, so to speak. Even, the last words my mom said to my grandmother were just go to bed and slam the door behind her. So you wouldn't be surprised, you'd be surprised that many people have some of the same concerns. Empathy, right? What we have found is, so feel, felt, found. What we have found is that people in similar situations feel more comfortable when they can shift the risk to an insurance company for pennies on the dollar to maximize the amount of long-term care protection. Would you be interested in seeing something like that? So you've taken it from you understand the pain, you push the bruise a little bit, felt, and then you understand it and you provide some type of solution to say they're not alone, which typically leads to the assumptive close. What is it? The assumptive close is you're assuming the sale's already done. Okay. And if you do this right, again, like I mentioned, you ask the right questions, you acknowledge, head nods, yups, agree, smile, laugh if warranted, because again, we want active listening. And then if they're going along with the same lines, you've eliminated stuff, based on our conversation, it sounds like you really want some permanent insurance to give you cash growth. You want to make sure your family's protected, so we need to look at some term insurance for that as well. And let's start by, putting in what we call a trial application. Okay. It's just to get your health records done. We want to make sure we get a final decision on what the pricing is, but we want to make sure we put you through to make sure that the insurance company agrees with the assessments that I'm thinking today. Okay. So it's the assumptive close. You're guiding them through this process. That's why it works. You've already, eliminated a lot of concerns. Now it's guiding them towards the final purchase. And that's why I said here, I kind of jumped the gun, is to get to that trial close. So in the insurance industry, this works really well. Why? Because underwriting can take a while. Now, some people are fighting their way to the bottom. They're giving their souls away to try and get these simplified issue products, this quick and dirty, and the client ends up paying more than they would if they did a traditional underwriting. So I'll ask you guys this, and you don't have to answer, but if you were a customer and you wanted to get $1 million in coverage, but it cost you $2,000 a year, or and you'd get it right away. Or if you had a blood draw, urine, whole 9 yards, and it costs you $1,000 a year, which would you pick? Sadly, a lot of people from our side of the fence will pick the 2000 because they want to make the sale and move on. But if I'm coming in behind and saying, why would they do that? When you could do X, Y, and Z, there are some carriers that could give you non-med. But for the most part, there's a lot of people in this industry who are looking for quick and dirty, and you have that client for years. That is a referral source. You do right by them, you'll gain more referrals and more opportunity. You do wrong by them, you just cut down a tree of opportunity, if you will. So that's a big thing. So when you talk about the trial close, you say, Mr. and Mrs. Client, typically underwriting takes about 4 to 6 weeks, and sometimes that'll lead into maybe even the conversation when we talk about rejection. I think I'm going to have to think about this. Okay, well, how does 4 to 6 weeks sound? Well, that's a lot of time. Perfect. Well, that's how long it takes to do underwriting. They might have to do some blood and urine draws, but that gives you time to think about it. And so Raphael, you asked a good question. Do all carriers do full underwriting or just some of them? All carriers are leading towards non-med as much as possible. Fiscally, it's cheaper for them to push people through with non-med than it is to have an underwriter touch everything. So when you talk about this to say 4 to 6 weeks, they say, oh, that's a lot of time. Okay, well, you might be able to get through quicker, just to let you know. Some carriers offer non-med and leave it at that. And then all of a sudden, like I had a 50-year-old done $3 million. It was done in a day, literally a day. So you go back to them and say, holy cow, the insurance company really loves your health. This is a great, great rate. Whatever the rate is, they're insurable. It's a great rate. And at that point, I think you should move towards an application, towards taking the policy because it's not in effect until you actually pay for it. So the trial close or the trial application gets some of the work done with the assumption that you're going to take care of it on the back end. And then once they get the offer, then you start doing some case design. What's your budget? What do you want to put here? How much do you want in term insurance versus perm and things like that? Or if you're older, and you're doing legacy planning and stuff like that, that's typically done on the front end. But there's different ways to kind of handle that. But the trial closes works really well, especially with 30 plus year olds, 30, 50 kind of deal, still in their working years, maybe a little hesitant to do insurance right off the bat, but we've seen some great results with that. So, building rapport with clients. So, as I mentioned before, the rapport is everything when it comes to this. I would say when you talk about first impressions, confidence is always key. And I have this happen all the time. Okay, so newer agents, you see this up here and you say confidence is key. Dress for success, relative. You know, if I had a way where I could sell insurance in t-shirt, gym shorts, and flip-flops, I would. But yes, there is, depending on the clientele you're looking for, an importance of, say, a polo, a blazer, good slacks. Some people that I've talked to, unless you're wearing a Rolex, they're not going to talk to you. Eh, I'm not that bougie, but there are people who think that way. But confidence is probably the most important thing. And when you're brand new to the industry, that's the one thing everybody lacks. So we go back to what we talked about in the beginning to what I say now is that you have to cut your teeth somewhere. You're going to make mistakes. So is it better to educate yourself on every single thing possible so you can have some type of rebuttal in case you need it? Or is it okay to go out and ask questions, build relationships with people who are okay with you making mistakes, by the way, because you built that rapport with them? I think option two makes a lot more sense. Um, you go to column A, column B. Column A is you don't talk to someone. You want to talk to them, but you don't talk to them. Column B is you talk to them. Now you have two options. They say yes or no. If they say no, it's the same as not talking to them, but you have a 50-50 shot now of them saying something. So for those who are not confident in your initial pitch, how do you get better? Role play. Yeah, talk to people. That's what you have usually mentors for, or people who have been in the industry for a while. If you don't know, I have an open calendar, and if you block time, my time is yours. So I'm there to help people through this process so we have more people in the industry saying the right things as opposed to getting drowned through these, you know, field marketing organizations that care more about stacking dead bodies than they do helping people. No offense if anyone's in one. So, a firm handshake, body language, eye contact is all important. How do politicians do it? Like, you say, well, there's this going on in the world. what are you going to do about it, Mr. Politician? They say, that's a great question. We're going to definitely get that taken care of. But what I really want to focus on today, bring it back to something or go back and flip a question back to the customer because you want to make it about them. Okay. And if you need to collect data, say, this is great information. What I want to do is I want to set up a second appointment. Let's put it on the calendar now. How does next Tuesday look? And I'm going to come back with options. And then the options are you call up your person, Phil, I need your help designing something. And that's when we go to work and figure out what we can do to offer a proposal, talking points, and things for the next customer visit. So, a lot of times, if you're brand new, you will not close the case on the first shot. Might take two, maybe even three appointments, but you just keep going because most people quit after 2 years, and you don't want to be a quitter, right? So when we talk about active listening, understand before you offer, as I mentioned before, open-ended questions is the best way to go. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Yeah, Nana, Chan took way too long, but hey, you just never know. Um, but yeah, active listening, understand before you offer, these open-ended questions, that's what gets them engaged. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me about your history. How did you build all of this? How did you meet your spouse? How did this happen? X, Y, and Z. And that's why I say listen more than you talk. Otherwise, you're just pontificating, and some people will be going like, you know. So that's the big thing. Personal connections. So, what are some good common grounds to talk about? Definitely stay away from politics, religion, and for some people, sports is religion. So, you got to find out where your common grounds are. If you meet in, say, a religious setting, obviously, then that is something you can talk about. But a lot of the other stuff is rather taboo. Kids are a great common ground for a lot of people. I remember when my kids, and you know, there's some people on this call who used to see me as an RVP when I would do trainings. A lot of times I would start out my presentation by pulling up a presentation, but it'd be my kids. And they'd be, oh, look at your kids. And there's no secret. It's me trying to make a personal connection so I can have better rapport with them. You gotta make it personal. So someone like Teresa, who's seen me present year after year as a wholesaler, now in a different light, that's the secret. I was pulling on heartstrings, just so you know. So transparency and trust. It's all about ditching the hard sell. No one wants to be bought. They want to buy, right? So don't tell me what I need. I'll tell you what I need. So you have to switch the transition from a idea of um, you know, a hard salesman, a greasy car salesman kind of attitude. Again, no offense to greasy car salesmen, but when you look at sales tactics in the United States, two of the least favorite things to talk to is like a car person and an insurance guy or gal. I literally bought a car in cash and I still had to go through the simonizing and the oil changes and I just like so we want to get away from these hard sells and think long term about the authenticity of what we're bringing to the table to allow that consumer the opportunity to be our referral partners in the future. And by the way, you don't have to incentivize a customer, which is illegal, to become a referral partner for you. If you've done a good enough job for them, they should be praising you anyway. So, understanding the client needs, you want to assess their client needs beforehand, whether it's income replacement, leaving a legacy, final expense, again, that's kind of tongue in cheek. You could also look at retirement planning with certain customers and then really kind of tailoring it, custom tailored specifically to them. Budget is always important, but let's be honest, not a lot of people are always going to give their entire budget to you because they think you'll go to the max. And so, you can show someone, say it was an income sale and they want to put 500 bucks away, say, well, 500 bucks would give you this. Imagine what 750 could do, 1,000, stuff like that. So you can kind of visualize it, and then all of a sudden you might see their eyebrows lift, or their ears perk and say, well, let's see what that will do. And all of a sudden they found their own money. Now, in regards to strategies for overcoming objectives, the I can't afford it. So response, the typical response, I totally get it. I can't, if it were me, you know, let's find a plan that kind of fits your budget. So the most important thing is that we remember why we're doing this. If there's a foundation for protection, you have to understand that, like, if you're proposing to someone a 35-year term, okay, $1 million 35-year term, and it costs them $1,000 a year, but they can only afford 250 a year, just using stupid numbers. But maybe we have a conversation around a 15-year term or a 10-year term, something to at least protect them. Because at the end of the day, what does a 10-year term do or a 35-year term do? It gives you more at bats to go back and talk to the client. Hey, has your health changed? How are you doing? Just checking in on you. And then all of a sudden you find that they might need to have a conversation about converting that policy. So it doesn't always have to be the longest duration of term. There's highly flexible payment options, so you can show different options to the customer. Again, part of your open-ended questions, you know, when you explain things like, do you like the idea more of renting or buying? What do you like? Do you like equity growing inside of your policy, or do you just want to stay there for a set duration of time? So those can help you uncover these so you don't have as many rejection opportunities on the back end. Another one, I don't need life insurance right now. So you could look at this a couple ways. So this we have, I understand, but life insurance provides peace of mind, ensuring your loved ones are protected no matter what. Let's explore an affordable option that fits your current situation or emphasize the benefits. What I would simply go back to is that okay, and usually if you have a husband and a wife, or I should say spouses, whatever, you look at the other spouse and be like, so and so doesn't make it home tonight. What are you gonna do? The jaw drops, a lot of times, or you'll see them kind of like, hit them like, are you serious? This kind of thing, because then you got one. But the idea is that you also want to have both decision makers there, because the last thing you need is, well, I gotta go talk to my wife, I gotta go talk to my husband, I gotta talk to whoever. So the worst thing is playing telephone. So I tell someone and then they're supposed to tell their significant other. It doesn't make the same correlation. So stuff like this, I like to paint the picture again. It's like, all right, so that's fine if you don't think you need it. If you don't mind me just asking, what would happen if you didn't make it home tomorrow? And then if they're just tired and they say, well, I'm willing to take the risk, be like, okay, fine. Are you okay with this too? And just see. You're kind of playing against each other, but in certain situations, especially with life insurance, there's no person that's ever said, man, this is way too much insurance. We should have bought less. It's always the other way around. Oh my gosh, I wish I bought more. Truth story, I knew someone who came to me as a referral. They wanted to put $100 away a month into a plan that built cash value because they saw on TikTok that you could make a lot of tax-free money. They have a kid on the way, freshly married, and don't have a lot to protect themselves. Really, there's no insurance. The LIRP, life insurance retirement plan, would have given them a $50,000 death benefit because it's the bare minimum, the lowest face amount you can go, and it's not really going to generate a lot of cash. Well, that same $100 a month could have given him $1 million death benefit. As much as I could try and convince him, he still said no. And you know what? At some point, you're just going to have to let it be what it is. But you guys have to have that common sense to say, hey, this isn't going to work for income, but you should protect yourself and your family in case you don't make it home tonight. Another objection, I'm not sure if I trust the company. What I would say is again, for those who came on late, I talked about this before we started the recording, on my website, the App Valor Financial for YouTube. We basically talked about this last night. The trust in the company. If you can show raw data, unlike we can do pull up Comdex scores, how much millions or billions of assets these companies have. Talk about 2008, no insurance company went underwater, even though banks did. That tells you how important the insurance companies are compared to banks and stuff like that. So every carrier that we partner with is literally over 100 years old, and I wouldn't have it any other way because that just talks about sustainability. So you can share success stories, client testimonials. So if you have other testimonials of people who have coverage currently, that's another way to go about it. I don't understand the policy. That means we have to say, apologies. Maybe I went through it too quick. What parts don't you understand? Let's go through it step by step so we can put it in simple terms. And then, really, like I said in the beginning, I'll say at the end, no one wants to be bought. Or no one wants to be bought or sold. They want to buy. So we have to look at more of this as a consultative approach. Education is key to help empower our clients making an informed decision. And as long as they have that informed decision, then you'll be on your merry way. So that's the big thing about this is we always want to make sure that we are telling people everything that we can without pontificating. But the other thing too is, when you talk about a close, this is the one thing, if you ask for the sale and they say yes, shut up and take the sale. Don't keep talking about other stuff because you want to sound important. So if you're doing a direct close and someone says they want what you got, pull up an application. Don't keep going. But wait, I didn't tell you about this. If they like that, you can tell them as you're giving them the policy when it's purchased. Oh, by the way, we also have this. And so the direct close, if someone says it, go for it. Summary close based on what we talked about today, Mr. and Mrs. Client. You have a need of this. We talked about this. We had here and here, and we ended up looking at term insurance. Is it okay if we even just submit a trial application to see what the insurance company thinks of you? Urgency close. I'm not a fan of that, but right now it's 2025. You've got clients who are high net worth. There's some tax havens that are looking to close by the end of this year. And so there's an emphasis on time sensitiveness here. The other side of the coin would be you have an offer, the client's kind of dancing around whether or not they want to take it. Just say, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you're only as healthy as you are today. We don't know what tomorrow brings. A good story you can take. When I was running an internal GA, with the career group, we had agency manager fighting with the carrier's underwriting from their captive agency because they got a smoker rating, whereas I, through a carrier, could give them a non-tobacco rate. Uh, while they were fighting, I should say, I wasn't fighting, I was just waiting. Client had a heart attack and all insurance went off the table at that point. So when you think about the urgency close, that would be probably on the back end. The carrier gave you this offer, it's good for 2 weeks. I wouldn't push that because if something happens in the meantime, the coverage isn't bound. And so that's where you could probably bring in an urgency close. Folks, I think this is probably the most important thing that you could do is role play. Okay. I was down in Atlanta last weekend with one of my agencies talking about role playing. Practice makes perfect. Deal with someone who's been there before. Ask them all your questions so you're ready to go. You're never going to have all the questions, though, just an FYI. And then after each sales interaction, you want to review and learn from it. What did you take out of this? How can you help yourself get better for the next time around? Like I mentioned before, I have an open door policy. I have, time frames on my calendar for that very reason to do things like role play, to do things like, hey, Phil, I went through this sale. What do you think? And then we keep going from there. So, just kind of in wrapping, we talked about different types of sales techniques. Most importantly, building rapport with clients to get off on the right foot, overcoming some certain objectives, and really it's just about practice makes perfect. So, um, what I would like to do is simply just open it up for questions. If anybody has any questions, you can put them in the chat. You can go off mute if you want at this point, and ask any questions, any similar experiences that you might have had. Once again, while I'm allowing people time to think of their questions, all my trainings will be up on at Valor Financial after. So you see, I got a bunch here. My back to basics every Wednesday night have the same, I guess, army feel, if you will. I don't know. Different trainings all up on the site. And again, great collaboration, May 3rd and May 4th, 2025. Just a lot of great information that'll be at this event in Irving, Texas or Dallas area. $25 is the going rate for right now, up until April 1st. Then it'll increase to $100. Lunch is provided on the 3rd. Breakfast is provided on the 4th. Two strong keynote speakers and tons of sales ideas for you to learn and grow. We will have the registration form. I would say by tomorrow is what my marketing people say. So I'll say Monday, just because I know how things can be. But a lot of stuff happening here, all for the betterment of you guys getting to your clients in a better avenue and a better way. So I think I stalled long enough. Does anyone have any questions, comments? Let's keep the raw outbursts of emotion. But 3, 2, 1. All right. Well, appreciate it as always. You guys will see this up if you want to recap. Thank you so much for the time. And I will see you either Wednesday night at 8 p.m. for our weekly training on back to basics, or next week at this same time, 4 o'clock Central, for another sales concept, case design, things like that. So appreciate you guys and have a great rest of your day, rest of your weekend. And I wish you the best on whichever football team you're rooting for. I hope they both lose, but I'll see you guys.